I want to talk a little bit about the discourse around undocumented workers, and I'm going to talk a little bit in a transglobal way because um, I'm an American who is currently living in India, and as a matter of fact, I just had the police leave my house. Quick story: um, I'm an American who's doing a PhD research here and have a research visa, and um, the police, three, you know, uniformed policemen just showed up to just verify that I should be here. And I find this interesting because that has never happened before unless they specifically said that they need to verify it. And there are a few instances here in India where a company like a mobile phone company will send someone to your house and say, okay, to verify that you actually live there. It could be as simple as asking one of your neighbors. But that's common practice here in India. But to have the police show up like that is a clear indication that someone has been ticked off or tipped off about something. And so I spoke with them, the three officers, and I mean, I come from America. I'm a black man. You know, police um, make me nervous. You know, to be real, and I have to have a clear, idea about how to deal with police because, um, even as this man indicated, there is a suspicion around who I am and what I am. The first thing he says to me, of course, and you know, you know, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? And it's not, and I've heard enough white people ask where they're from to know the difference between a curious where you're from and, oh, well, I've been to England or France or Germany, as in, as he later said, well, there are Nigerians here who are drug dealers and all these things and so many illegal things. And of course, I told him that, you know, I appreciate the fact that this Blue Eagle protects me from a lot of the harassment, but do you understand that, there are lots of African students here, I'm affiliated with the university, who are targeted by the harassment. So people do just show up, where they live and ask them, who are you and why are you here? And neighbors look at them suspiciously, and landlords won't rent to them. And I told him that to speak about Nigeria, I mean, you talk about Indians in Nigeria. Well, one thing that I find unique and interesting about multiculturalism in Nigeria, um, that despite the inter-Nigeria conflicts, you find that South Asian people are in many ways able to integrate in ways that simply are not normal here for African people coming to this part of the world. And so, with all of these things in mind, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the rhetoric around so-called undocumented workers in the United States. Um, because there is a very rightist sort of emotional sort of discourse that says that they're illegal aliens and they're therefore criminals and lawbreakers and who knows what other manner of no good they'll be up to. So it really tries to demonize that other. And then you have the leftists who go to take the rational approach, and they're like, and I'm in many ways can be considered part of that camp where I say that give undocumented workers the ability to get a driver's license and health care, yes, because the safer the people are around me, the safer my world is, and I'm a citizen who has supposedly all these rights that we're protecting. Well, in order to protect me and uphold my rights, you need to take care of the people who enter this environment. And so we always get into this emotional conflict of, we don't want them coming over here and taking up all of our benefits. And this is the same discourse that you hear in Germany, which has in many ways taken a lot of refugees um, from around the world because of kind of like that guilt from World War II. And so absorbing perhaps many more than they were um, emotionally prepared to deal with. And then there have been little efforts to integrate guest workers. As you can see, guest workers in Germany, the term guest worker in itself implies a very specific kind of labor exploitation. But that's exactly the relationship that we aren't really clear about in America because, as anyone has said, you can't eat a meal in America. You can't eat your freaking burger and fries in America and not have an undocumented worker's hands, physical fingers have touched that food. And until we acknowledge that we have that kind of dependency, um, we can go on with these emotional versus rational tropes of discourse around undocumented workers, but we will never get to the reality um, on a couple of levels. There's the personal, how comfortable are we with, in America, the INS just showing up at people's doors and intimidating people. And, I just want to look around and this is just a routine check. And then on the other side, you have the normal citizens who, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't mind. My life is an open book. You can check my ID. But these are the people who don't get routinely stopped who are saying this. Just like the people who are talking about hunger, they're not hungry. Talking about how can fat people be hungry? Well, don't even know what the calorie intake versus a nutrient intake is. But this is all to say, and I could give another example. There's a time when I was an illegal worker in South Korea. Um, Perhaps I can imagine that someone would have been an illegal worker if they say went to work for one school as an English teacher, and that school tried to exploit them, and they tried to unionize and actually negotiate with the school, gave the school every bit of leeway to say, how can we, make this relationship of employer-employee more equitable? Not doing so, I can imagine that a person in that situation would flee, find another job, let their visa expire in that job, and then go get, a valid visa. So I can see that happening. Not that I have done that, so I can see that happening. But that's a way that, as an English teacher in South Korea, native English speaker and teacher, we provided a valuable service that people were willing, A, pay a lot of money for, but B, treat with a certain amount of respect. So you didn't have the suspiciousness around who we were as foreigners in the neighborhood. Curious, people do all the gawking and pointing and staring, but in America, it takes this tone of where we have a fundamental lack of respect for different kinds of labor, including that one. So when I hear the right yapping and the left, rationalizing, I keep thinking, what about these people who show up at my door? What about me trying to do right? I'm not a criminal person. If anything, if I were an illegal alien somewhere, I would make sure that I stayed on the right side of the law in every situation. I would be the one who, always signaled when I turned. I would be the one who, if I saw, um, a 12-pack of Coke that the cashier didn't see in my cart after I got into the parking lot, I would go back and say, here, I don't want to steal from you. Um, but then the so-called normal Americans who are rightfully there, it's different. In Germany, my partner's, next door neighbor, the kid, 3, 4 years old, asking, when the kid saw me, he's like, darf er hier sein? But, should he be here? And this is the fundamental question, is we want to talk about who must and must not be here. And I don't want to go back to the fact that in the United States, we are, in many ways, many of us are very much immigrants. But I want to look at this issue of who must and must not be here. And it's something that's a thread of xenophobia that I see in many, many places. Is when we ask who must and must not be here, that even that 4-year-old kid, I was thinking, wow, my cousins, 4 and 5 years old, are asking, wow, what an interesting language you speak. Can you teach me something? Um, Tell me about where you come from. But then we have this kid asking, just should you even be here? And that's all he wanted to know. And that's what I think is in the danger of this kind of way that we look at difference. And it gets articulated through discussions of, aliens, of difference, of foreign here in India, foreigners, is the idea that we stunt our curiosity, we close ourselves off to different ways of being, because all we're concerned with is this, mine and yours, and who's going to get it first and the most, because we're sure that one of us will be exploited. That's what it really is. One of us will be exploited, so it better not be me. And I actually think there's a better way to go about things, that there actually is enough. It's not about making sure that people don't immigrate illegally by treating them bad, but it's making sure that they have good home sources of income in their home countries. And it's a democracy in home.